blessed to wake up to see another day. So you know I had to wake up and immediately put my thoughts in order, take action, write down some notes, and more importantly, share my message, because if I don't, I'm holding myself back. So let's make sure that you can take a second to take a look at the board to understand what it is we're going to be talking about today, because it's all about DeFi 2.0. Let me shut these shutters down. So, as you can see, really it all starts with, once again, being able to understand certain concepts that we're going to address before we move forward so that we're on the same page. Because if I don't address these things, you're going to be a little bit lost along the way. But you got to understand that it all starts with what settles debts. What is the settlement of a transaction, right? Because we understand that scarcity is the number one thing. And so your time is a scarce resource that you have to be very careful with. You see, your time is your energy. The way that you go ahead and carry yourself, due to the fact that you are a sovereign being, you're like a battery. Every human being is a battery. You produce energy with every breath. Take advantage of it, because when you do, you want to make sure that you do something with that breath. Every single time that you try to help the world, you need to focus on one thing: your own personal state. Every breath determines how you will react or participate in the environment outside of you. So take a breath and enjoy the moment, because that is the most scarce thing, your vitality. And that is determined by your heart rate. Remember, human beings are batteries that produce energy based upon your ability to monitor your state. That's why some beings are electrifying, yet some are very, very dull and depressed. And this is not their fault. It all goes back to your personal awareness of breath. So take the time to realize that your more scarce resources are your vitality and your time management skills, because it is your your birth to death cycle that determine what it is that you quote unquote accumulate during your life, right? Your state during your life determines how much wealth you accumulate during your life. It's not hard, but you need to understand that it is your state, and your state's determined by your breath, and your breath is determined by your personal awareness or attention to the expansion or the lung capacity given to you by the Creator. And you need to understand this, because if you don't feel that internal expansion, how can you have external expansion or growth? You see, don't hold yourself back. Take a look at what it means to be in a position of scarcity, because it's not being lacking of money, it's lacking oxygen. Those who lack oxygen are lacking the ability to execute on their dreams. Oxygen is the fuel to all of your dreams. This is why you see the Wim Hof method bringing you back to cold, so that you could give attention to the one thing that is needed when you have nothing else, which is your breath. So think about that, because this is my job. My only way to earn my income before I ever learned about crypto and becoming my own bank was to serve the world and teaching them how the body works. Because if you can learn the physiological and the psychological, then you can teach somebody how to become a brand new being. Because we want to become humans that are in control of our own destiny. And the most important thing here is that you need to understand how, by taking care of your own health, you can become of service to the world, because you could be a walking example of what it means to be in a position of peace, health, and eventually wealth. Because the more healthy that you are, the more attention you could bring. Not only is attention worth bringing onto you, but you got to deliver value in a way where you don't take more than you give. Going back to settlement of transactions, you see, there has to be a certain price to exchange energy, because otherwise you would run out of energy if you were just to service the entire world without an exchange of energy. This is why there was what is called a market. This is the creation of this market, which is, if you need something, I can solve the problem for you if it'll make it easier for you, because you don't have certain skills, the wisdom, the experience, or the tools to be able to accomplish the task. And so this is where, once again, looking at your skills, your experiences, money, all these networks, relations, all these are tools, right? All these tools that you can use to create a product out of yourself. Because if you realize that these are all channels, tools, whatever you want to call it, avenues for you to be able to become your own product. You see, going back to the seed of you, how you move, how you feed yourself, and how you invest, you need to understand that these three things are what allow you to become a living, walking product. Where if through specific methods of scalability, automation, and professionalism, you can expand is the word, not express. Although you do want to express your true message genuinely, you can expand your reach. And so the idea is, as you expand your reach, there is going to be this increase in transactions. Remember, everything is transactions, right? It's how one action transitions energy from one being to another. This transaction of energy is the most important thing, because once again, going back to your life to death cycle, your attention determines how much wealth you accumulate during your life cycles. And so going back to this idea that you're a sovereign being, that you're going to use your free will to leverage your time and energy and thoughts in order to create beautiful relationships that will help you increase your immunity. Because remember, your immunity is for your longevity and for your vitality, but it all starts with your breath. Nobody can take these things away from you, but it actually all starts with where your attention goes. You could either be distracted, manipulated, or you can go ahead and be in control and meditate. Look, guys, if you don't meditate, you don't have an awareness of where you want to take yourself. You don't have a clear vision for your own personal future. And if you don't have an awareness of your own personal future, how can you go ahead and leverage these things to get out of debt, right? Debt is the most important thing we got to talk about here, because as we understand, the entire economic system has arrived at a point where debt is the standard, and without debt, there is no money, right? Now, money is different than value, and value is different than wealth, but money currently is being used as a tool to exchange energy in our current economic system and global paradigms. And so what we really got to look at is, how do we go ahead and take ourselves from this mindset of living in a world of debt and becoming self-governed beings or sovereign beings that take ownership and initiative and control of their own free will, time, energy, to then create their own form of storing their wealth. Now, how do you, the person receiving this information, store wealth in a way that nobody can access? Well, you've got to become a business. How do you become a business? Well, you come up with an idea and then you protect that idea. You see, it's all about you being able to leverage the system that has been created before you in order to see what's coming, obviously to prepare yourself for what's coming in anticipation of what you are able to see. And so with the current preparation of the legal system, or the current foundation of that legal system, it's clear to see that humans, you and I, can become sovereign beings by understanding that there is this straw hat policy where you are basically capitalized against, where basically your letters, whenever you receive an envelope in the mail, if you receive it in capital letters, that's because that's the you that's being capitalized against in the future, based upon the amount of income you should produce, based upon the zip code that you live in, based upon the crime and success rate. Look, we can go on and on about this, but the most important thing is that you understand is that every human being has the capacity to store long-term energy based upon their current ability to see the future and understand the current moment, by putting themselves in a position where they create their own business to solve a current world problem, by leveraging future technology and current innovations to position themselves as a enthusiastic competitor in the market, to raise the level of future competitors and the current standard of the marketplace. You have to see it as, when you, the human, becomes aware that you're a battery that should produce energy, not just consume energy, but you produce energy when you are driven by the right vision. And it takes meditation to achieve the right vision, which then becomes a self fulfilling cycle of energy where you fuel yourself because of your own ambitions and the directions of your position. And then you start being able to produce so much energy that you start storing it, quote unquote, or leveraging it into these ideas by protecting them into these businesses. And then once you create these businesses that solve world problems, then you can contribute more than you could ever imagine to certain value to society. But it is going to be represented in what's called the community, the society, the world, giving you back energy, which is called profits. Now, you need to understand that these profits, it is your decision as an individual who's a sovereign being to decide where you choose to store your energy for long-term leverage, utilization, or capitalization. And you need to see it this way, because if you don't, you're going to fall victim to the system. The system, which was created on debt, because they don't want you to trust your own ability to manage your own financial assets or capital, because they don't think you could do it. So they want you to trust in what's called a bank. This is why when they created what are called tier 1 reserve assets, the dollar and gold are the only 2 reserve assets that are currently level 1 tiers that basically give you the opportunity to create what's called a physical representation of this tier 1 asset. It could be either gold or dollar. Once again, you have it in the US dollar, which if you keep in the bank, it gives you less than 1% return on your money. Remember, if you have an idea and you choose to store it in a bank, it'll give you less than 1% of your money. And this is important because, once again, in order to become your own bank, you have to ask yourself, do I want to produce from within? Meaning, is there a way for you to just produce money like the central banks? Or do you want to bring your money in and then store it? Meaning you want to create with your hard work, energy, free will, thoughts, relationships, and health. Do you want to produce capital and then bring it into these banks so that way you could store it there and grow that money at a rate of under 1%? Look, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that's the current financial system. And as we learn more and more about what's called DeFi, or the decentralized financial system, or what is called this opportunity to purchase what are called digital assets to then create collateral against them. Look, it's real simple. I'm going to start right here, because trust and credit are the things that people have been leveraging for the last few years. But this is coming to a point where there's too much debt. Right here. And then the trust that we have really has been diminished, because the ability of people to pay back their debts has really fallen, because now the amount of collateral that people own, people like myself in my age, we don't own houses left and right. We only have maybe one home. I'm personally looking at currently getting that home, but we have to find the right place because the market is crazy right now, right? But the way I see it is, if I'm going to go ahead and get an asset, I want to go ahead and find an asset that's going to let me have collateral, meaning I'm going to look for real estate with property, so that not only could I build, but I could leverage my property in order to get myself involved into different positions. Because as I become my own bank and learn how to leverage my wealth into different areas, I really want to make sure that I expand my position beyond physical assets and into digital assets that can be collateralized in order to provide stability for the new form of money production that is actually happening in the world. People are not perceiving this for what it is. We gotta get away from what is the Federal Reserve and central banks and what is money in the form of the US dollar, because they are currently just printing. You see, in order to run those printers, which are called computers, they have to be plugged into an electrical outlet. You cannot do all this technological work without being plugged into an outlet. So the real resource backing all of this becomes energy. Hence why El Salvador took initiative and said, look, we're going to make Bitcoin legal tender, because we can see into the future how energy becomes the greatest resource, right? The ability to produce energy is the greatest resource right now. Not money, but it's how we create money. And so what they've done is they've chosen to go into an appreciating asset, which is called Bitcoin, and turn it into legal tender versus the US dollar. Now, they're not saying no to the US dollar. They will still take it, because once again, you could settle debts with a dollar, but you can also grow your wealth faster if you put your wealth into an appreciating asset. Hence, boom, Bitcoin. Now, not only are they buying Bitcoin, they are producing Bitcoin. So what this means is, and they're storing their energy or value in Bitcoin. What this means is that for every single time that they are solving equations to once again provide value to the Bitcoin network, a financial system or a monetary network, what they're doing is they are helping the world transition into what's called geothermal energy, right? This is a form of stored energy in Bitcoin that's given us the representation of how much energy it costs to create a dollar. Now, instead of saying it creating a dollar, we're saying how much energy it takes to create one Bitcoin. One Bitcoin is a representation of a certain amount of currency units versus though in the past it was gold compared to dollars. Now it's energy, quote unquote, whatever form of energy it may be. El Salvador has chosen to create energy through the vehicle of geothermal energy, which is incredible, right? Because it's very eco-efficient, although it requires a lot on being able to leverage the positioning of the equipment needed, because you have to follow what are called these positions of volcanoes, where there are either thermal energy position, geothermal positions where you have the steam coming out, or you can go underwater and leverage that as well. But these opportunities to keep producing Bitcoin is just a way for the world to transition into what's called digital collateral assets. Digital collateral assets, being Bitcoin or Ethereum, these give us the foundation of what is called new money. New money because it's digital and because it can transact networks internationally, globally faster. But more importantly, what it's really doing is that it's leading us to a world that is being quote unquote stabilized by what is called a form of currency that has no connection to the US dollar whatsoever. That's right. We want to disconnect from the US dollar, and the faster we do this, the better, because we understand that the US dollar is just a currency that is increasing rapidly in the units that are consumed for that currency or that being produced for that currency. So imagine if there was a bunch of plants to represent the dollar, the value of a dollar. Well, every single week you would need 2 plants to represent the value of a dollar, and now you see it increasing. So if I bring in a dollar, I can take away today maybe 1 plant, next week maybe 2 plants, next in 2 weeks, it's going to increase and increase and increase. And so what we're doing is we want to find some sort of stability here, and so the world's transitioning their assets from stocks, which is going to be the indicator. Once again, remember, people in the markets, smart financial investors who are looking for returns who are greater than single digits or double digits and are looking to get into triple digits, they want to move their money into positions that will let them maximize their return in the shortest amount of time, because it is the baby boomers that are causing this whole shift, right? Because they created this debt, they created this situation, and as we continue to appeal to their needs because they've transitioned into an elderly age, so now they have to have healthcare needs being paid for by the government, there's this reoccurring debt cycle that has been created by them trying to take out credit to buy homes and leverage themselves. But then also as they age, they require wealth from the government in order to be able to sustain their health because of medical reasons or whatever. And so now you have this double debt or double dip. And then that falls upon us because remember, as the government keeps sprinting out money to keep up with the demand that they have to supply these baby boomers, the price of these assets, quote unquote, homes, land, and all of this thing keeps going up, meaning that your ability to produce has to go up. And if you are not storing your ideas in the form of businesses that then leverage your ability to receive energy back from your community that you're serving to then be able to then store it in whatever form you want, you are essentially putting yourself in a negative disposition to move your entire financial portfolio forward, to move your family forward, your generation forward. And so you kind of want to think of yourself as being aware of this transition of energy into money, or what we say transactional value. And that's why they're saying that Bitcoin is a store of value. Trust me, I've had a really, really, really hard time trying to grasp what is going on in the world so that I can actually accept why I would actually invest into Bitcoin and how I would invest into Bitcoin. And I'll give you some more information on that because it is something that I'm planning on doing, but I want to make sure that I first position myself in the right places with my businesses before me as a personal financial advice. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to go ahead and position myself for the next year to really be able to make some smart investments into Bitcoin by going through some IRAs and positioning myself that way. Now, the idea here is that as you see it being accepted, we want to learn that it is going to become a digital asset that's going to be leveraged, that you could either purchase and settle transactions, which is the most important thing, because remember, digital collateral or stable coins are going to be used to settle transactions. This is why you're hearing a lot about what people are saying that are called CBDCs. And these CBDCs, CBD, sometimes you can't write and talk. These two things, right, are also what's called a way of settling debt because of transactions now being approved by these guys. And this right here is really connected to Bitcoin. This right here is more connected to the XLM network. And as you understand what DAI is, you start to learn what DeFi is. And then we got to talk about DeFi 2.0. All right, and this is where we're going, because if you don't understand how we as a society, as a global awareness, consciousness, we are moving away from what is called accepting the US dollar as a tier 1 asset, and now restructuring our paradigm to re-accept energy as the main form of currency, and that representation of energy encapsulated or captured, right? Energy being captured and represented in a form is now called Bitcoin. And so because now we see that by, we understand how much energy it takes to produce one Bitcoin. However, we also understand that Bitcoin is not large enough or strong enough in the sense of speed, in the sense of how many transactions it can sustain. It's not strong enough to hold the entire world's financial transactions volume. And so what's being done is that there is this interoperability being created, because the technology that was introduced here was not only the token, right? The token, but it was also the blockchain. And so these two things have to be understood, that there's not going to be one blockchain to rule them all. All these blockchains are going to be kind of interoperable, right? That's why it's called distributed ledger technology and interledger protocol. These two things are going to run the new quote unquote internet through, instead of IP, we're going to get rid of that and we're going to go straight into ILP, which allows us to do micropayments, right? Instead of having to do large payments only. Because if you wanted to send some Bitcoin, but you only wanted to send $1, well, that would be kind of silly unless you are transferring your money in what are called layer 2 solutions. Now, these layer 2 solutions are great, but what they do is they also go ahead and allow us to then create more blockchains, more tokens, more. It's all over the place. This is why they're trying to regulate it and trying to create some type of structure. The idea here, in order to create structure, there must be some type of global consciousness or global awareness of how this all works. And in order to do so, those leading the way, which sometimes they're not those that we would want because they are not considering your best interest, but they're considering theirs. And this is why we are seeing this split on what is called creating a stable coin. You have the world's greatest minds on our side fighting to create what is a decentralized stable coin currency. And then you have on the other side what are called the governments trying to create a stable coin currency leveraged off of the technologies being created by these private companies that have been invested by these private investors and obviously these royal bloodlines, these people who are trying to impose certain regulations over the world. And so you see this split. Just like we're seeing underground internet being developed by these fiber optic cables versus Elon Musk creating Starlink and Helium creating these new forms of internet and all these great things that are happening, right? You have private companies, decentralized companies, and then you have the foundation of the world, which is ran and been placed upon us by governments. And so all these paradigms are shifting right now, and you need to understand that as all of this happens, it all comes back down to what will create the most stability across the entire ecosystem, hence stable coins, before looking at yourself and saying, oh, because I understand that there are these ISO tokens created. Yeah, well, those are created to build infrastructures on top of. Remember, that's value that's regulated to go cross-border transactions across the world accepted by banks without any issues because they are already approved. But what we are talking about here is what will create stability in the world so that we can transact away from the US dollar. That's all it is, but still being able to carry what's called quote unquote a 1-to-1 ratio or a one something to another one something, some type of stability. And so in order to do that, we now have to start going into these secondary protocols, which are now called DAI, MIM, UST, and RSR. Now, all these things are going to lead us towards a more stable, decentralized financial system. But this is why I haven't really jumped into explaining all of the flare intricacies or quant and all of these things. Everything here is about providing you with an awareness of how we are transitioning from the old paradigm to the new paradigm by helping you understand that transactional energy, right, through the laws of thermodynamics. What we have to understand is that we are taking geothermic energy, which is produced by by the planet's core, so that we can then turn that energy, whether it's wind, hydro, solar, whatever it is, or geothermic, into energy to then give us a representation of what free market or what innovators, what entrepreneurs are innovating to help move up our world forward towards a more green world. Remember, this is all about becoming a green world. 2030 agenda is the green revolution. And so as we approach what's called DeFi 2.0, you first need to understand that we are transitioning from a world of those that do not understand how to protect their ideas to a world of those who have no choice to protect their ideas if they want to get paid. Because as we transition to become our own businesses, then we can protect our ideas and then decide where we want to take those profits, whether it's to pay ourselves, which you should always first, and then decide what to do with those gains. Because if you learn how much income you really need, then you can expand how much growth or investments you could really have, so that way you can maximize your ability to settle debts but grow your capital, so that way you're not capitalized by what the quote unquote elites or elites plan for you, but you can plan for your own self because you're a self-governed being. Understanding that as you invest in digital assets that are appreciating, then you could probably have a better rate of success. Now remember, digital assets that can be leveraged against is what DeFi 1.0 is all about. Now, DeFi 2.0 is creating leverage by creating tokens that break away from the US dollar by leveraging these decentralized reserve assets created through protocols and DAOs, so that way users all over the world can participate without having to go ahead and go through a third party or intermediate party. Look, everything is transitioning at a rate faster than I can describe. I'm trying my best to wake up early. I'm trying my best to connect with some of the greatest minds that I could find. And once again, I want to give you great information so that you can keep putting yourself in a position to succeed. Understanding that you've got to learn how to produce from within crypto so that you stop bringing your energy from outside into it. The way I see it is, if you learn how to make a few investments that let you go ahead and start producing from inside, you stop having to put into the machine, and the machine produces from itself. And this self-producing machine inside of the crypto world becomes your bank, and you become a tool, a divine tool to serve the world through your wisdom and awareness and experiences, and more importantly, through your health and vitality, because you want to serve the world correctly so that you have little to no debt, so that way you can continue to expand your growth anywhere you want, whether here in the US or outside of the US, but move without the weight on your shoulders that you are in too much debt that you cannot get yourself out of. Now remember, once you have increased your ability to produce cash flow, then creating debt is actually a good thing, because then you are able to leverage that debt, knowing how much you can kind of pay off within your parameters, and then be able to improve what's called your credit score at the same time. So you use that, you improve your credit score, and then you're able to position yourself to acquire new assets that produce what we would say are high bearing returns, or you find a way to increase your yield. And so this is going to be where we're going here, because as we understand, if this gives you about 1% and this gives you, I don't know, 0% just holding on to it, now the other opportunities to go here, there are places where you can get 8,000%. There are places where you can get 70,000% return on your money. And so it all depends on you, kind of what you choose to do. Because if I put $1 into somewhere that gives me a yield of 8,000% a year, well, that sounds a little bit better to me that 1,000%, that 1% or less than 1% in the bank, or 0% in cash. So really what's happening here, it's the learning curve of how to play in DeFi, right? Because DeFi gives you the ability to become your own bank, which then allows you the ability to invest in what some would say NFTs, which are just gonna boom, rocket if you know how to position yourself, which is the next place I'm trying to take myself, is the NFT market. Personally, I did not have the wealth to leverage and playing around on speculation. Now that I became my own bank and I can produce from within, I want to be able to learn more about the space, give you more value along the way as I keep learning what it is to participate in the crypto markets. And more importantly, because once you become your own bank here, by learning what it takes to then diversify or produce from within instead of having to bring it in, then you can build a business that helps you increase the amount of money that you bring in on the outside by helping you learn how to create NFTs, and then eventually it'll be governed by a DAO. And remember, NFTs and DAOs and all of these protocols that allow you to go ahead and run your business, all these things are what makes DeFi 2.0 so incredible, because it brings communities together by being able to create a surplus of liquidity or capital that then these communities could leverage for opportunities for their communities to get access to capital. Remember, the idea here, in order to become your own bank, is to become a gateway of opportunities for your community to finally have access to the capital that they've been looking for, but they were being limited or restricted from because of X, Y, or Z. Now it's your ability to capitalize on this and to step in, fulfill that role so that we can innovate the way our communities grow, but more importantly, collaborate. Because as we move forward, we need to find new stability as we get rid of the old world and enter a new world. A world where trust is not determined by where you live or the crime rate or the home that you have, but by your ability to sustain your own health and provide value for the community in a way where you feel happy to do so, not forced to do so. And if you could start seeing the difference there, I think slowly but surely we will transition our world from a world of dark kind of emotions and tension, right? Where you could feel that maybe it shouldn't be talking to the person next to me because they're wearing their face mask and maybe they're not healthy and that's gonna scare me because what if I put my family at risk? Look, get over that mindset, start taking care of your own vehicle and start taking care of your own immune system so that when you step out into the public, you don't question whether it'll affect you. You simply understand that through breath, and through meditation and through putting yourself in the right position with the right proper financial preparations, your mental state will never be able to be broken, because it's not about what they do, it's about how you keep the peace within. So find a way to become your own boss, find a way to start your own business, find a way to become your own bank, and I promise you, your immune system will rocket, and more importantly, you will be able to give those around you your best self 24/7. Thanks for watching. I hope to catch you on the next one as we break down DeFi 2.0 a little bit more with some more clarity so that you can understand how you too can start getting involved with these projects that give you massive returns. Thanks for watching.